Episode Revenant has a slew of artifact perks that will buff stasis builds to the next level. In this video, I'll be covering 3 builds that will dominate this season. No matter if you're a hunter, warlock, or titan, this video has you covered. Let's get right on into it. Since all these builds will be using stasis as the main component, the first thing that we need to go over is the artifact perks. There are 3 main stasis perks that are super important for all of these builds. First, we have Wind Chill. This perk allows you to score precision hits with a stasis weapon to gain stacks of frost armor. This will give you extra damage resistance, but I'll touch on why this is so important in a minute. Second, we have Crystalline Converter. Now picking up stasis shards will start to build up your Crystalline Converter, and your next stasis melee will spawn crystals depending on how many stacks you have. And the final and definitely most important perk is Hail the Storm. Now shattering stasis crystals will spawn 5 ice shards that will deal damage and slow nearby targets. Now it's important to note that all of these can receive a tonic boost. I go over exactly how the tonic system works in this video here. Basically, you can activate a tonic to boost an artifact perk, and some tonics will even boost 2 perks. You mainly want to boost Hail the Storm, since this will now cause any shatter to deal even more damage. If you can, you ideally want to boost Hail the Storm as well as Wind Chill, so that you can use your stasis weapons to spawn more shards and in turn power up your Crystalline Converter even faster. With these perks active, we can gain more damage resistance by hitting crits. We can create more crystals by picking up stasis shards and using our powered melee, and we deal even more slowing and shatter damage. There are other artifact perks that are helpful, but these are the main ingredients, the catalyst that you need to bring. So let's dive into the builds and break down how they work. The first build on our list is a Titan build. In the past, I've had one major complaint about trying to use stasis, and that is the healing. But today, that all changes. With episode Revenant, we got some major reworks to exotics, and one of those being Icefall Mantle. Now you can activate your class ability to instantly gain max stacks of frost armor. While this is nice, it also allows you to instantly gain a bump in health every time you gain a stack of frost armor. So the idea of the build is to gain as many stacks of frost armor as possible. In turn, you gain consistent healing and extra damage resistance. I thought about bringing this on the prismatic subclass, but I found that it would be easier on the stasis subclass, and that's mainly because of Tectonic Harvest. Now picking up a stasis shard will not only give you health, but also grant you a stack of frost armor, which in turn gives you even more health. Plus, shattering crystals or frozen enemies will now create those stasis shards, making it even easier. Another important part of this is a lovely fragment called Whisper of Rhyme. This now makes it so you can hold 8 stacks of frost armor and increases its duration to 13 seconds. At 8 stacks, your damage resistance goes all the way up to 36%, making it that much easier to survive. And the other big part of this is our other aspect, Diamond Lance, which in this episode also got a rework to make it even easier to shatter crystals and enemies, but also allow you to slam it into the ground and immediately gain 2 stacks of frost armor, adding another way to instantly gain health and damage resistance. So what's the flow for this build? Well, you want to save your class ability so that if you start to get low on health, you can instantly pop it and gain a burst of health and damage resistance. On a normal basis, you can create crystals from your grenade and your melee, which in turn will create stasis shards and give you frost armor and health. Every 7 seconds, you can make a Diamond Lance by getting an ability kill or a stasis weapon kill. You mainly want to slam these lances into the ground to gain more stacks of frost armor and health, but they can also be thrown to deal damage at distance. And when it comes to improving the build, for stats, I shoot for 100 in resilience and discipline, and then about 70 in strength. Any leftover stats can be mixed between recovery and intellect. For weapons, bringing a stasis primary with headstone is a good option so that you can land those crits to create crystals, and it will give you frost armor with the seasonal artifact. The new stasis hand cannon can roll with Rhyme Stealer, which can give you even more frost armor for shattering crystals or frozen enemies. Alternatively, the new Alethonim stasis exotic grenade launcher is a pretty good option, dealing decent damage and creating more ammo for you and your team, though you do miss out on using those crits for frost armor and shatter damage. And for that artifact, you want to bring the previously mentioned perks, but you can also bring one with Frost to gain faster reload speed for stasis weapons when Frost armor is active. And you can bring Brain Freeze so that frozen targets will also slow nearby enemies. The Glacial Quake super deals a massive amount of damage, and now you can safely use your stasis build in regular play with how often you heal and gain damage resistance. This build is going to be really strong in activities like the new Onslaught mode. Hey you, yeah, you. Are you enjoying the video? If so, remember to leave a like on the video and consider hitting that subscribe button. The next build on our list is a Warlock build. Last season, we had the dynamic duo build, where we could use our grenade to create a stasis turret and an arc buddy. Well, this build is a new and improved version of that build. This time around, I'm not bringing Getaway Artist. Instead, I'm bringing a class exotic with Spirit of Inmost Light and Star Eater. Remember, you can now go to Ghost in the Pale Heart and attune for certain perks, making it easier to get that class item that you're looking for. With Spirit of Inmost Light, we can gain back a ton of ability energy just by using our abilities. And with Spirit of the Star Eater, we can deal even more damage with our super, which is why I'm bringing Nova Bomb. This did get a nerf, so it won't be dealing as much damage, but it will still be buffing our Nova Bomb by 50%, still making it a good option for nuking champs and bosses. We then use our grenades to create turrets that will consistently freeze enemies, which is perfect for locking down areas. We pair that with Facet of Ruin so that all of our shatter will deal more damage, and Facet of Courage so that our Nova Bomb will deal 10% more damage to targets affected by darkness debuffs. With Devour feeding us health and grenade energy just by getting kills, you should have enough survivability. But just in case, we bring Facet of Purpose so that picking up Orbs of Power will give you a Void Overshield. And what's the flow for this build? Well, when starting an encounter, you want to throw a normal grenade or use a powered melee so that you can gain Devour. Then whenever you get your grenade back, you hold the button down to convert it into a stasis turret. We aim to create as many turrets as possible, so keep doing this every time you get your grenade back. And when you're going into a boss DPS phase, make sure to throw a turret near the boss to consistently slow and freeze them so that you gain more shatter damage. And this will also proc Facet of Courage to make your Nova Bomb deal even more damage. And when it comes to improving the build for stats, I shoot for 100 in Resilience and Discipline, and then I go for a mix of Strength and Recovery. For weapons, bringing a Stasis Primary with Headstone is a good option so that you can land those crits to create crystals, and it will give you Frost Armor from the seasonal artifact. The new Stasis Hand Cannon can roll with Rhyme Stealer, which will give you even more Frost Armor for shattering crystals and frozen enemies. Wicked Implement has some fantastic synergies, but I'm not a huge fan of scouts, so it's not for me personally. And I really love the new Alethonim Stasis Exotic Grenade Launcher, which deals decent damage and creates more ammo for you and your team. This also makes it super easy to create orbs, giving you more Void Overshield and powering up your Star Eater Nova Bomb. And for the artifact, you want to bring the previously mentioned perks, but you can also bring Conductive Cosmic Crystal, which is massive to allow your Nova Bomb and normal Arc Grenade deal even more damage to targets affected by a stasis debuff. And then you can also pair that with Brain Freeze so that frozen targets will also slow nearby enemies. This build gives you everything you need. You have great survivability with Devour Healing and Void Overshield, easy ad clearing with Stasis Turrets, and even massive boss DPS with Nova Bomb. What more could you want? And finally, that brings us to our Hunter build. This time, I went full in on the artifact perks. While Stasis is a main component, we aim to take advantage of our Void and Grenade Launcher artifact perks. So we bring Winter Shroud paired with Stylus Executioner. That way you can use all of your Stasis debuffs to consistently gain invisibility. With this season, we can use Grenade Launchers to consistently weaken enemies, and in turn, proc Devour for more survivability and grenade energy. Ideally, you want a class exotic with Spirits of Galnor and Surturachne to gain back more super energy and consistently proc Woven Mail for more damage resistance. Don't forget to go to the Pale Heart to be able to attune for specific roles on that class exotic. We of course are bringing Tether, which will give us the largest debuff possible on bosses, but this is also fantastic for game modes like Onslaught. When paired with Spirit of Galnor, you can consistently gain back a ton of super energy, allowing you to pop your Tether extremely quickly. And what's the flow for this build? Well, you want to use your grenade launcher on bosses, champions, or any enemies with shields. That way you can weaken them. Then Then you can get grenade kills to proc volatile rounds for your void weapons. You consistently gain invisibility from nearly any kill, though if you need an instant way to proc it, simply dodge near a target and then kill them. Your melee will not only spawn more crystals for shatter damage, but also make you radiant. That way you can stun barrier champions and get more weapon damage. And when it comes to improving the build, for stats I shoot for 100 in resilience and discipline, and then I go for a mix of all the rest of your stats since they're all pretty useful. For weapons, I love bringing a void primary with repulsor brace for consistent overshields, and then pairing that with a DPS weapon like edge transit to get the most out of my void weapon surge. You have a ton of options for grenade launchers, though I really like Witherhoard with this build. It's easy to use, great for ad clearing, and even puts out some decent boss DPS. And for the artifact, you want to bring the previously mentioned perks, but you can also bring rapid impact so that dealing damage with grenade launchers grants them increased reload speed, concussive reload so that damaging a boss, champion, or breaking a shield with grenade launchers will weaken that target. And this pairs perfectly with power from pain, so that killing 3 weakened enemies will give you that devour. This build will be good for everything from Onslaught to dungeons, giving you easy access to weakening, invisibility, and even a ton of ad clearing with shatter damage and volatile explosions. With all the changes that came with episode Revenant, these are the 3 builds that stood out to me. We have plenty more to come over the next couple weeks, so if you like my content, feel free to like the video and subscribe to see more of my videos. But remember, mastering this build is only the beginning. Experiment with different combinations and tweak your loadout to suit your playstyle. Keep an eye out for future videos as we continue to explore the ever-evolving world of Destiny 2. Until then, may the threads of fate be ever in your favor. This is Lucky Mech, signing off. See you on the next adventure, Guardians.